The broadcast of the regular meeting of the Civil Rights Commission Accountability for the Killing of George Floyd Task Force will now begin.
Let's see how that is. Good evening. This is Cindy Lord. I'm the chair of the Civil Rights Commission Accountability on the Killing of George Floyd Task Force, and I'm going to call this meeting for March 11th to order. I want to welcome everyone joining us this evening. As we begin, I will note for the record that this meeting has remote participation by members of the commission and city staff as authorized under Minnesota statutes Section 13D.021. Due to the declared local public health emergency, the city will be recording and posting this meeting to the city's website and YouTube channel as a means of increasing public access and transparency. This meeting is public and subject to the Minnesota Open Meeting Law. At this time, I will ask the clerk to call the roll so we can verify a quorum for the meeting. Madam Clerk?
Commissioner Devenish.
Here.
Commissioner Folk. Commissioner Gold. Commissioner Herkman.
Here.
Commissioner Rance.
Here.
Commissioner Stignani.
Here.
Commissioner Folk. Commissioner Gold.
Here.
Chair Lord.
Here.
There are 6 members present.
Great. So we have a quorum. Commissioners, the agenda for today's meeting is before us. It's a very straightforward and simple agenda. I believe it's in the chat. May I have a motion to adopt the agenda?
Commissioner Stignani so moves.
Commissioner Devenish seconds.
Great. We have a proper motion before us. Is there any discussion before the clerk calls roll call? Okay. Seeing none, I'll ask the clerk to call roll call on the motion.
Commissioner Devenish.
Yes.
Commissioner Folk. Commissioner Gold.
Here.
Commissioner Herkman.
Yes.
Commissioner Rance.
Yes.
Commissioner Stignani.
Yes.
Commissioner Folk. Chair Lord.
Yes.
There are 5 ayes.
Great. So that motion passes and the agenda is adopted. We're going to move on to item 3 on the agenda. It's the general statement that condemns violence and encourages and promotes peaceful protest and exhorts the city council to lead in a specific way forward with voice and action for referral to the Civil Rights Commission. I'm wondering, Commissioner Stignani, if you could maybe take us through the, if we could, view the statement, put the statement up on the screen. And secondly, if Commissioner Stignani would like to walk us through the draft that he has put together, and then we could have some discussion around it. Does that work for you, Commissioner?
Yes, it does. Would one of the people supporting us be able to put the, Ted Bull shares me. Fantastic. Thank you. So this short statement comprises 3 items we spoke about last meeting, points 1 through 3, and then points 4 and 5 were not discussed distinctly, but I added them for the purpose of discussion. And also, given that I decided to put things optionally that were not discussed in there, I would like to open the floor to anybody who would also like to see other points added to this. Basically, the tone and meter of the statement is attempting to be neutral, with an emphasis on safety, peace, and non-violent action by everyone. So I'll let people take a moment to read it, and then happy to answer any questions you have or meanings of which I've put in there. So I'll pause and let open the floor for commentary.
So this is Commissioner Lord. One thing we had talked, I think, about, but maybe had not decided to take action on last week, was potentially a statement that was more exhortive to the mayor and city council, to have one maybe public facing statement and one statement that was maybe more pointed, directed towards government officials. Is that something that we would want to do? And I ask, and it's relevant to this because it might take some of the pressure off of some of the content of this statement. If we were to like bifurcate those.
Commissioner Chair Lord, this is meant to be, the public-facing statement, and we could certainly add the more exhortive statements in a separate. I guess my recollection of the last meeting was I was focusing on the public-facing statement.
That's right. So maybe we'll just kind of set that aside for now, and we can come back to that and just focus on this as a general public statement.
Fair enough.
Yep. And I think that the statement I should mention is also in the chat. I think Madam Clerk or someone else on the team has put that in the chat as well, mentioning that.
Commissioner Stignati, this is Commissioner Devnish.
Yes.
Good evening. I appreciate you writing this, and I personally like the way it's written. It's to the point, and yeah, I think you did a good job, so thank you.
Thank you for your comments. What I would like to do, though, is really bring the group's attention to 4 and 5, as we did not discuss them, for inclusion here, and they're simply put up for the purpose of discussion. Would anyone like to comment on their inclusion or comment on their removal?
Commissioner, would it be okay if maybe we just kind of went point by point on this to just see if there's comments on each one, just in the
Sounds
spirit
great.
of being thorough.
Okay.
So let's maybe start with just the opening paragraph. And there's, I acknowledge that like writing by committee is definitely not how, great novels are written, or great anything for the most part. So let me acknowledge that. But are there any comments on the first paragraph, the opening paragraph? Because ultimately we do need kind of alignment and the full committee to endorse it. So is there any discussion or comments on that at all? Maybe we could just kind of quickly move through.
Is it Commissioner Lord? I'm looking to access this via the chat, because when people are talking, it's moving away from Ted's screen, but I don't see it in the chat actually.
It's in the PDF document that Ms. Hanson posted.
Okay, maybe.
At the very beginning, it would have been like timestamped like 5:39.
I'll include it again just for those who have
Okay.
joined, but you could also read it out for those individuals who are not able to see the chat right now. You could read out the
Yeah, I can.
paragraph that you're looking at.
Thank you. Good
Sure.
suggestion. So I guess I could just read it for benefit of folks. Looks like some people are on the phone as well. The Minneapolis Commission on Civil Rights, MCCR, recognizes that the world is focused on the upcoming trial associated with the killing of George Floyd. The MCCR also recognizes that this trial represents a watershed moment for civil rights for Minneapolis and the state of Minnesota. To this end, the MCCR supports these peaceful actions. And then one is peaceful demonstration is a fundamental right of our citizens. We encourage our citizens who wish to demonstrate to do so peacefully with full knowledge of their rights as listed in our resource links below. So let me stop there. Paul, were you able to see it?
I can see it now that I think it's when two people are talking, but for some reason I'm just not able to grab something in the chat. So this works fine for me this way. Thank you.
I'm a community member. My name is Ashanti, and I've been trying to find the statement. Where could I find that?
It is in our legislative system, but I've noticed that it's, I think it's down right now. So that's why we're recommending that the chair read each statement so that you can hear.
Okay, great. Is there a way for me to, are you going to make copies available or get that up soon?
Yeah, I'm contacting our tech team, but obviously it's after hours, so I'm not sure if it'll be resolved right at the moment. But it will definitely be available.
Okay, I'm just calling from the community, talking to folks. I was there when George was killed, so I'm just representing the community, and we are a little bit at a loss to find the information. But thank you.
Do you know what the legislative access is that it was previously referred to? Is there like a URL we could provide the member of the public?
That would help. I mean, like she said, it looks like there are tech problems where there's definitely a link, but it doesn't go through.
Yeah, I was personally having the same problem myself before the meeting, which is why I'd asked to have it posted in the chat.
Yep, I'm Chair Lord. I'm going to work on it, see if I can get it working, and if I do, I'll let everyone know.
Great, thank you. If I could go back to the task force members, are there any comments or thoughts so far that we want to discuss on point 1 or the introduction?
Yeah, what do you mean by watershed? Is it? I think that's. I think I want that to be a little bit more specific.
I'm using the word watershed to say that there is we are at a place of focus or unique decisions to be made for civil rights as based upon this trial. So when I use the word watershed, it is really, it can go one way or the other, and we want to endorse a peaceful methodology to either demonstrate our opposition to the where it goes, or to endorse where it goes. So, but the whole action there is, watershed is, an artful term. It can be certainly substituted with something less ambiguous, if that's the problem.
Yeah, I understand what watershed mean. Ambiguity was the issue. That's it. I just,
Any other comments on the opening bit, or can I move on to point 2? Okay, so we exhort the mayor, the city council, and the Minneapolis police to allow peaceful demonstration in safe locations and to prioritize de-escalation by law enforcement and any supporting units as promised by the city. This is one that I did have a couple of questions on, I guess. And Mark, maybe you could tell me what you're thinking. I was a little thrown by allowing peaceful demonstration because it's not up to the mayor or the city council or the Minneapolis police to allow demonstration. It's our rights as citizens. So I was a little taken aback by that, and I was wondering about safe locations too, because it almost seemed to like be circumscribing or constraining kind of the I don't know, just where people could be, right? Because it's really not up to them to decide what's safe or not, you know?
Well, the actions taken, and my thoughts around that are the actions taken of last year. Basically, they chose not to allow demonstration in certain periods and times. They gave a time limit, and then moved into remove people from that location. Safe locations is putting people, allowing people to peacefully demonstrate where they might be at risk is, I think, not something we want to recommend. I mean, we're trying to extort the police, the mayor, and the city commission to allow people to protest, in safety. But that's where I'm thinking about it. You can certainly propose other language. I'm not wedded to it.
No, I
Chair
get
Lord.
that.
That makes sense.
there's no safe
Chair
space
Lord.
for protest
Ken,
just started. So when we say safe space, are we just talking about permits?
Can you repeat that? You broke up.
I'm sorry. So when I think allow, I don't agree with that either. Simply because safe space isn't really is the issue, that there aren't safe spaces to actually protest without police brutality. So I would like to revisit thinking about coming up with a different word than allow, something like it's their right, or something clear about the intentions of peaceful protests.
Well, we established that peaceful protest is fundamental right in the first point. So
Commissioner
Okay.
Commissioner Herkman, did you have something to add as well?
Yeah, just to go off of what you were saying, Chair Lord, I would propose the verbiage: we exhort the mayor, the city council, and the Minneapolis police to provide for peaceful demonstration, because they are responsible for ensuring that, and that takes into account safe location. But if they provide for peaceful demonstration and prioritize de-escalation, I think those are their responsibilities. And just because there are other voices on here, I would also, on one, I would say we support peaceful demonstration as a fundamental right, only for parallelism, because we have a we exhort and we expect. And for one, I would change it to we support peaceful demonstration, or we, just so that they're parallel we statements.
I think those are both great suggestions to have, verb constructs and then support as well. Commissioner Rance, did you have something to add?
No, I think that's a nice compromise.
I think I would like that a little bit more specific. It's not something about expecting the right of, like, we expect the rights of peaceful protesters to be safe or something that, again, a little bit clearer, not as vague like watershed.
Is there, and I'm sorry, a member of the public, could you please repeat your name so I could address you properly? I feel like I can't address you properly. So
My name is Ashanti.
Ashanti.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you for that comment. And was that with respect to the top paragraph, the introductory paragraph?
That's for the first point about safe space, providing safe space. I would like something more direct, like we expect the rights of peaceful demonstrators to be protected. Because it's my experience that peaceful or not, de-escalation isn't a talent in Minneapolis.
And I think the second point is really meant to address that, to hit on the, I think to Mark's point, the safety of it.
And also, if I may interject, demonstration in an unsafe space, for instance, in the middle of the freeway, is not something that the police are going to allow either. So this is why I'm trying to define safe locations within that. I can't support people, stepping into traffic,
right,
as a demonstration output.
So
so
it's
what Martin Luther King did. I don't see it's what they did during the bus protests. It was meant, that's what protest is meant to do, disrupt daily functions. So these type of moments of people's lives can be taken into account. That's exactly what happened.
So are we good, just to kind of get us back on task with this statement, are we good, Commissioner Siniani, opening up point 1 with kind of a verb construct, and also changing allow to provide per
Sure.
Commissioner Herkman's
I have no
recommendation?
either of those.
Okay, and can we, let's kind of go back to that kind of safe locations. I feel like we haven't totally aligned on that.
Well, I mean, the commission is has to come up with something here, but we cannot, as we are a arbiter of civil rights, we are essentially judges. For us to endorse peaceful demonstration in unsafe locations, I think, is not a step that we can take.
Well, then why don't we just get rid of that point then, or stop, or not use the word safe spaces, or use something else? Because again, like the tactics that are being used are exactly the same tactics that was done during the civil rights movement and Martin Luther King. That's exactly what they did, marching from one state to another. So if we can't endorse that, then how do we say it differently? So it's not, the onus isn't on the peaceful protesters, but on the city of Minneapolis, who has a history of not, of what is it, of not what I don't know. We're top 3 in racial inequality forever.
Okay, so let's take,
yeah.
So let's vote on it. Let's just vote whether we keep safe location or not, and then we can keep it moving.
And this is Kayla from the Civil Rights Department. Could I just make a very quick comment, Chair Lord?
Sure.
I just wanted to mention, just for the member of the public, we're very happy that you're here. I just want to remind that this is a statement from the commission, so only commission members would be voting and ultimately deciding on this statement.
That's fine. Again, what I'm trying to do is provide that community connection you don't seem to have. And I ultimately, you're going to say what you're going to put, but for me, it's very important, and for the rest of us who live here, that we actually are able to articulate ourselves in these spaces that you're not familiar with.
Thank you for your perspective. I think we really appreciate what you're saying. So thank you. Let me ask the Madam Clerk and others on the department, do we need to necessarily vote on things, or can we, in a committee meeting, can we just decide? Do we really need to vote? Just in reference to Commissioner Rance's suggestion, I don't really know the rules.
Chair Lord, as we discussed at the last meeting, yes, you should in the end vote on something. If someone has a proposal and the group can't come to a decision as a consensus, then yes, you would definitely need to vote on it, and you will be voting on it at the end as well for whatever you end up referring to the Civil Rights Commission. And also, I also agree with Kayla that thank you for the members of the public who are attending. Typically, members are here and can listen, and then once called on by the chair, they could provide comments. Thank you.
Chair Lord, I agree with the, on behalf of the members of the public that I would like to take out the phrase safe locations, because I think that it allows a broader, that if we change allow peaceful to provide for peaceful demonstration and prioritize de-escalation, it allows a broader reach and isn't as constraining as the member of the public said. While still getting our point across without having to define what is and isn't the spaces, but across the board, they should provide peaceful demonstration. And so I think that from my perspective, that that can carry the day by changing allow to provide and losing safe locations.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Ashley, Ken, Mark, are you comfortable with that? Cindy, I think I missed Cindy.
This
Yes.
is Commissioner. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Cindy.
This is Commissioner Devenish. I agree with Commissioner Harkman and our community member. Even though she's not a part of the commission, I think it's very wise to listen to our community members and be open and transparent and welcoming to their suggestions and input. So thank you to both of them.
I would agree with you, Commissioner Devenish.
This is Commissioner Gold. Ashanti, thank you for being here and thank you for your perspective. And I agree with Ashanti and Commissioner Hartman. I think it's important to also, you know, as we're talking about this, I'm thinking about the George Floyd Square, and I'm thinking about how that is an active state of protest, and it is we shut down the street, we shut down 4 blocks. So I really, yeah, I feel like that's a good move. It's a good to take out a safe space. So.
And I don't think we heard from Commissioner I struggle with your last name. I'm worried I'm going to mispronounce it. Stignani.
Yes.
I struggle with
well,
that.
you know, since I am the author, I will certainly bend the will of the group. I think that everyone but for Commissioner Lord has spoken about removal of safe space. Again, I put these things forward not as written in stone, but written for examination. So I am willing to abide by the editorial changes proposed by the other members of the task force, as there appears to be an informal majority for that at this point.
Okay. All right. Commissioner Rance, I think you're the only one who hasn't proffered an opinion on that, unless I missed it.
You know, I moved that we voted on it. So if the majority wants to have it strike, then so be it. I just want to make sure that we're able to get through this document tonight.
Great. Okay.
So that's so that was my concern. That's why I was just saying, hey, if there's an issue, yay or nay, then we vote majority rules, and then we keep keep moving forward.
I think we do have a informal majority on that. So let's strike safe locations and just focus on the providing peaceful demonstration and prioritizing de-escalation. If we're okay, let's move on to number 3.3. We expect all law enforcement to abide by the city's promises of de-escalation and restraint on use of force by law enforcement. That seems rather straightforward and appropriate to me. Any comments or thoughts?
I'm fine with that.
This is Commissioner Gold. Also, thank you, Commissioner Stignani, for authoring this up. I guess I feel fine with it. I think there's, I almost want to hear the word oath instead of promises, because that is what law enforcement takes, an oath to protect and serve. And then showing restraint of use of force. And I don't know, part of me also wants to hear excessive force, because we've also seen that. But once again, these are just thoughts off the top.
Well, they did not swear an oath for de-escalation. They promised it. So I'm simply using their words versus oaths. Oaths have meaning. Oaths have also, are well documented. These are promises.
Right. I'm talking about the oaths that they took to protect and serve. And then I guess, if you're specifically talking about promises of de-escalation, but that's what I was saying. I'm kind of wanting to hear more of that, but just a thought.
Okay.
I think Commissioner Stignani makes a good point about the actual meaning of oath, because they did not take an oath to de-escalate, but they did promise. And I think actually use of force is stronger than saying use of excessive force, because really what you're saying there is we don't want force, period, versus just excessive force. I guess I would
That's
take that case. Other comments? I'm going to propose we move on to talk about number 4 and leave number 3 as written unless there is an objection. And I'm specifically kind of looking at you, Commissioner Gold.
Yes, no, I say let's move on. That makes sense. Yeah, I thank you.
Okay. And Commissioner Stignani, I think these are the ones you really most want to discuss.
Yes.
For the sake of our member of the public, let me read. Point 4, we support government transparency and accountability and encourage everyone to document any unsafe behaviors of demonstrators and law enforcement. Mark, do you want to talk about that for
Sure.
a minute? What you were thinking?
My thinking is we are at this moment of trial because someone stood up and documented the police actions on and around George Floyd's killing. I think it is absolutely imperative that we encourage everyone to continue to document all behaviors that are unsafe. And the more we have on record, the better people act.
Comments, thoughts?
I would agree. And yeah, I wanted to say, for a little bit of perspective, we do record a lot and try to find ways to submit them, but we have to go through the sheriff's office or the police themselves. This was unique in the sense that George died, but it wasn't a surprise because they do this on a daily basis. They abuse us, and we get lots of documentation, but there doesn't seem to be a space or an outlet where we can actually, like, this was unique. But I mean, I've been abused by Chauvin. Many people here have been. So, and that's also documented. So I just wanted to give you guys perspective that we do have documentation, and this was unusual.
Mhm.
So this is Commissioner Rand. So I think that we should, include a step for what people can do with that documentation, whether it's reported to the proper authorities or what have you, so that if there is malfeasance, those things can be, addressed and investigated and dealt with.
So in other words, basically, what can people do? Like, is there a link to a website, or is there a phone number? Is that what you're suggesting?
Yes,
Commissioner?
I think we should provide some sort of, solution or place in which those acts can be reported and taken
So,
seriously. And,
we do have links
Yeah.
to ACLU for rights of the protester included below, or at least they were included below previously. So, I mean, if there is a link where people can submit documentation, videos, whatever.
okay.
Do we have that? I'm not aware of one, so I'm just saying that we certainly have room for links below, resource links below. So a documentation or submittal link, if it someone does exist, should be fairly easy.
Members of the Civil Rights Department, are you aware of a kind of a repository, or maybe our member of the public knows as a resource? Ashanti?
I don't. We've tried different things, and it doesn't seem it usually ends up going to the police union, usually, and like, I've been awarded money from abuse too, and it's documented. But once you enter that realm, they usually make you sign something that you're not going to post it, or they have to disclose disclosure type of forms and stuff. They figure out. I mean, they shut it down pretty quickly here.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know.
Commissioner Lord, this is Commissioner Devenish. I was wondering, can we post the civil rights website, maybe the NAACP, and
ACLU.
yes, and maybe, yeah, I feel like that would be good start as far as resources and support of. These are a few organizations that you can contact if you have any concerns about your rights. So I think that is a possible solution.
So maybe be a good question. Oh, go ahead, Kayla. Sorry.
Sorry, I was just gonna add, so this is Kayla from the department. I was just gonna mention that if it's a police related issue, like something that you would want to make a complaint against a Minneapolis police officer, you can file with the Office of Police Conduct Review, which is another division in the Civil Rights Department.
Right, but
Yes,
do you have to do,
and
I'm sorry, and this is something I need to know, do you have to do that, or can you just file with the civil rights? Because as that city member stated, that can be awkward, and you may feel like your life is in danger or something like that when you're going against the police. You're might be in fear of retaliation. So once again, can we just name, the Civil Rights Department or ACLU or whoever, NAACP, for supports and services? And it is okay to mention that, but also to mention these are alternatives. You don't have to go that route. You can go other routes.
That's good.
Yeah, I like that. I
Yeah.
think those are the Office of Police
I like
Conduct, ACLU. They're great. Is it, I mean,
like
is the, forgive me for asking like such a basic question of our own department, but you know, our department really focuses on education, housing, and employment issues. So, you know, is there really a role for what our department would do as a next step if they were to receive a complaint? I mean,
Is that directed towards the
it's
Civil
directed
Rights
towards,
Department?
yes, it's directed towards the Civil Rights Department. You know, just thinking about what links we want to include.
I mean, Commissioner Lord, this is Commissioner Devich again. I think about the review panels that we're on. And you know, I can't help but to wonder, you know, this could be something that we might possibly review. Yes, there is the police way to go about things, but also in terms of their civil rights being violated, possibly. So
Can I
don't-
provide just a little more context of what can be filed with the department that that you all could end up reviewing?
Yes,
Okay.
thank you.
Uh-huh.
I was just going to mention, so the Office of Police Conduct Review is still within the Civil Rights Department, so it's not the police, it's civilians. So they would take, if you're coming to the Civil Rights Department with a complaint, they would take anything that's a complaint against a police officer about like them violating policy. So, you know, things like excessive force and things like that. You can file with the Complaint Investigations Division, which is my division and the one that you all work with the most often in the cases that you review. And that would have to be based on discrimination. So that could still be a police officer doing something, but you feel like it was done because of your protected class, whether that's race, gender, sexual orientation. There's many that are covered. So you could file in either place or both places, depending on, you know, the circumstances under which something occurred.
It's excruciatingly difficult to prove any of that. That's the issue. And I mean, Chauvin had dozens of complaints filed against him, and he still had a job, and he was still in this community, like many of the other officers. I mean, being a gun held to your head, you can't say that's my race or my gender or my sexuality, or you know, this is the type of behavior that's here. That's why George was killed here, because this is what they, you know, if they can kill him on camera, what can they do on a daily basis? So the issue is that we can't actually always prove those things. So I've stopped filing complaints with the Civil Rights Department. It just doesn't, you can't prove it.
So, so I'm going to get us back on task and with respect to the statement, it sounds like there were like specific suggestions of relevant links would be the Office of Police Conduct Review, the ACLU, and the Minneapolis Civil Rights Department. That's what I had in my notes. Anything that I missed?
If those are the only links that we have, then that's fine. I would say, you know, there are other ways to, you know, push documentation out that is not city focused or city, you know, I believe we could certainly post links to tip lines for the news media. We could put, you know, have people submit to a YouTube site. I mean, there's lots of different ways to submit information to a site that has nothing to do with the city.
Right, that's right. And that might be, we might get some good suggestions in our full commission meeting on Monday, but
Sounds good.
what I'm hearing is we feel good about including this point and have identified some resources. Is there a consensus on that? And I'll ask people who don't agree with that to speak up on the commission, on the task force. Okay, so point 5, we condemn any actions on the part of demonstrators or by police that create unsafe conditions for any citizens. Mark, is there any context you would like to provide for that point?
Yeah, the whole basis for peaceful demonstration and peaceful response is to not harm others as you're doing it. So basically, as people are, protesting or demonstrating, either both, but we had the police, using kinetic, non-lethal rounds on reporters, and then, people standing on their porches. So I basically, want an evenly based statement that, unsafe behaviors for, bystanders, everybody else should be condemned.
Discussion or comments on that?
It's basically a no collateral damage statement.
This is Commissioner Rance. I think that somewhere in there we should also say that, domestic terrorism is not going to be, tolerated. So that's one point. And then two, regardless as to whatever the verdict may be, it is not an excuse to loot, to steal, and to burn down businesses and terrorize communities.
That's exactly what I'm trying to say, Commissioner Rance. So thank you.
Yeah, I mean, and if it's more explicit, then then great. But this is not, an opportunity for, a free for all to have the massive amount of just destruction that took place last summer.
Is there a way that we can channel some of what you're saying, Commissioner Rance, to maybe make unsafe conditions a little bit more pointed in the line of what you're talking about? Because I'm just wondering if that can be a little more, I don't know, pointed.
Well, it's beyond unsafe. It's unlawful, and it's wrong.
I would like to make a point. I would like to kind of give some clarity on this. Typically, people who are going to burn and loot and use the opportunity to destroy are not invested in or are not connected to George Floyd or this community. It doesn't matter what kind of circumstances there are. There will be people who do that, but these aren't protesters in the way that we think about civil rights and the way we think about our rights. That was my experience, that you did see this happening, and a lot of kids from the suburbs were there. So it wasn't. This isn't just Black people being angry and burning things down. That's not typically what happens. It's usually folks who are not connected to this at all in many ways, who do use that opportunity. So if we are just talking about rights of protesters and protecting them, I want there to be I think it's important to know the distinction.
Well, this is a public letter, a public statement to all people. Race was never indicated, or geography was never indicated. I don't think that
that's not true.
I never.
It's not true. It's not true in how that actually is interpreted by the public. It's when we talk about violence or looting, typically, even in the national imagination, they are thinking about people who are not. They usually are thinking about people that the police are in contention with, and Um,
But regarding what I stated,
okay.
what we're saying to the public is the public, regardless as to how you feel about the verdict, right? It is imperative that we do not destroy our community.
That's true. There's
Okay,
nothing, I don't
that
disagree with that
and
at
that
all.
and
I'm
that
part of the
is
community.
okay.
So
And that
I'm gonna put us back on task for the statement. So Commissioner Rance, do you have a suggestion of how we could maybe channel that for this point 5 at all, or anyone else on the committee?
Commissioner Stignani has a word substitution. So rather than saying demonstrators, let's say by any member of the public input, we condemn any actions on the part of any member of public or by the police that can create unsafe conditions, then strike, or dangerous or unlawful conditions.
unlawful.
Okay, that create unlawful conditions that endanger any other citizen.
I would agree with that.
Yeah, I think that's good. I would say dangerous and dangerous or unlawful, because those are there's a Venn diagram of those two things, right? But they're not necessarily the same thing. Okay, so member of the public and dangerous and unlawful. Let me kind of go back to the task force. So what we decided to do is replace demonstrators with members of the public, and creating dangerous or unlawful conditions. Does anyone object to that? So let me kind of ask if anyone has an objection or a request for a change, or I'm going to kind of push us to assume assent.
Commissioner Herkiman, you have your hand up.
My apologies. That was from previous. I will take it down.
Oh, and I should say, as the person who's chairing this, because I'm looking at the statement, I'm not seeing any hands at all. So I apologize. I've just been relying on people speaking up. My technology's a little constrained today. Are there other? So I think we've talked through the whole statement. We aligned on a set of changes. I've written those down. I'm assuming Commissioner Stignani, you've been writing those down as well, because I'm hopeful you'll offer to revise it as well, since you wrote it.
Commissioner Lord?
Yes.
I am going to send what I believe that I've taken some notes, and I'm going to send those to Ted, and then he can share his screen. I'm just having technical difficulties sharing my screen, so it'll just be a minute, okay?
Fancy. Thank you. Let me just ask, though, before we probably just kind of move to bring this to the commission next week, are there other things for this general public statement that we feel are missing, or that we need to address? Okay, then why don't we take a look at, trying to get back to my, when feasible, if you could maybe share the updated version.
Yes, I just sent it. I just sent it to Ted, so he should have it ready in just a minute.
Brilliant. We'll just take a moment then to wait.
And I've been trying to also include in the chat, Madam Chair, but item 5, I may or may not have accurately captured the sentiments of the group. So I would like you to just review that one once Ted gets it on the screen.
Sounds
good. Thank you.
I took good notes, so and I'm sure Mark did too.
Actually, no, I did not. So I have what has been put up in chat. Next time I will endeavor to be better at that. I apologize.
All right, let's see here. So here, why don't I maybe read it aloud? The Minneapolis Commission on Civil Rights recognizes that the world is focused on the upcoming trial associated with the killing of George Floyd. The MCCR also recognizes that this trial represents a watershed moment for civil rights for Minneapolis and the state of Minnesota. To this end, the MCCR supports these peaceful actions. One, we support peaceful demonstration as a fundamental right of our citizens. We encourage our citizens who wish to demonstrate to do so peacefully with full knowledge of their rights as listed in our resource links below. Two, we exhort the mayor, the city council, and the Minneapolis police to provide for peaceful demonstration and to prioritize de-escalation by law enforcement and any supporting units as promised by the city. Three, we expect all law enforcement to abide by the city's promises of de-escalation and restraint on use of force by law enforcement. Four, we support government transparency and accountability and encourage everyone to document any unsafe behaviors of demonstrators and law enforcement. And five, we condemn any actions on the part of any member of the public or by police that create a dangerous or unlawful condition that endanger any other citizen.
I would pluralize endangers.
Yeah, same. I was just thinking that too. So endangers. So that
Dear Lord,
creates a dangerous or unlawful, creates dangerous or unlawful conditions, creates dangerous or unlawful conditions. Yes, Commissioner Herkman.
Going all the way back up to the top, we had an initial conversation. I don't remember if it was a member of the public that brought it up, but about the word watershed. And for me, an easy adjustment would just be calling it a critical moment. For some people, by definition or not, watershed means important and valuable, but critical kind of just recognizes that it could go either way without having to overthink it. So it just removes an obstacle of trying to decide what the author's intent was.
That's a good synonym.
I would support that. Commissioner Rance, were you saying something?
Yeah, I like that synonym.
Any objections to that? Seems like we have some support.
No objections by the author.
Okay. I'm just like looking back at my notes to make sure. Let's see.
Commissioner Lord, while you're looking back, I was one of the, I had my hand raised before and I just decided not to, but because we're cruising pretty quickly, I can't think of a better word, but on 4 where it says we support government transparency, it feels like we need a word, I don't know as strong as demand government transparency, but support could feel like we're saying they're doing a good job. And I feel like we need to, we've already used expect and extort. We don't have to go super long on this, but we also supported peaceful demonstration. So if anybody has a tick up in strength of word for support government transparency, I feel like we need to be more aggressive.
Yeah,
but I'm
I
not.
agree. What about
Yeah, I don't know if
expect?
this is,
Oh,
yeah,
go ahead, Victoria.
sorry, this is Commissioner Folk. Yeah, I was going to say something along the lines of expect, encourage, just something that might feel a little stronger than support.
Why don't we say we require?
Well, I don't think we're in the position to require it though, right? But are we?
In terms of making a statement and using your voice, I think that's the position that's all you need.
Can we insist?
I like that.
Yeah.
We insist on government transparency. Yeah. So we're making two changes, watershed to critical and support in point 4 to insist. Is that right? Insist. Okay. Great. So with those two changes, I'm wondering, I guess I'm moving to vote on bringing this to the full commission on Monday.
Seconded by Commissioner Stignani.
Madam Clerk, do you run the vote?
Yes, I can call the vote. Commissioner Devonish.
Yes.
Commissioner Folk.
Yes.
Commissioner Gold.
Yes.
Commissioner Herkman.
Yes.
Commissioner Rounds.
Yes.
Commissioner Stignani.
Yes.
Chair Lord.
Yes.
There are 7 ayes.
Right. I am wondering if it would be possible for whoever has been keeping track to make the 2 changes. Oh, there we go. Brilliant.
Chair Lord,
Thank you.
I did send that document to Ted to show on the screen, which I believe is the final, what you just voted on.
Brilliant.
And
Thank you.
our legislative system has been corrected. And we can also upload this amended document, this final document to the website after this meeting.
That would
So
be
the public can access it.
that would be great.
Thank you.
I would like to quickly touch on 2 other things. One is socialization of this document. I mean, obviously I think we can have it posted to the Minneapolis, city website, I would think. Are there other things that we would like to do with it in terms of distribution and socialization to the broader public? And I'm wondering, I'm soliciting ideas here.
Chair Lord, are you asking that for immediately or once the broader commission has accepted it?
I would like to share some thoughts on how we might want to socialize it when we share it on Monday.
This is Commissioner Stignani. Commissioner Stevens had mentioned that the commission has a social media presence in a couple places.
Mm-hmm. So
Yeah,
we can.
I'm just not aware of where they are.
Are there any other ideas on socialization we would want to share when we present the document on Monday?
Commissioner Lord, I was wondering, once we reach that point, can we ask one of the council members to sign it?
It's a cool idea. Okay.
Is it possible to mail this to residents in this area, at least around a 3-mile radius? Or door knocking by the commissioners?
Well,
there's people and businesses here that that mostly operate in cash and they don't have computers, and there's people who don't either.
Mm-hmm. I think that's a good idea, but at the same time, during COVID, I don't know if that's obtainable right now. And I recently passed out 6,000 masks to some community members, and that was one of the barriers.
That's rough. Mm-hmm. That's rough.
Okay. Other ideas?
How about mailings?
Mailings. Okay. So we have
mailings.
mailings. Handing out like handing out literally pieces of paper to people within the community, social media, the website, any other socialization ideas?
You can also send it to the press. I mean,
The press.
Insight
Right.
News, North News, Star Trib, Pioneer
Mhm.
Press. I mean,
Yep, send to the press. I love that. Okay, great. So I think that's a good starter list to share and get some feedback on Monday, and hopefully we can get some hands to help with that as well.
One
I
additional, sorry to cut you
no, go ahead.
off.
No, go ahead.
Yeah, one additional thought for socialization. I know we talked about having the council members sign on to it. I wonder if, I believe at least for my ward, our council member has kind of communications that he sends out to his constituents. So I wonder if there's a way we can have the council members somehow include this in any communications that they send out to their direct constituents.
Right. Yeah, get it
And they
included
have
in
their
their
social media
newsletters.
platforms as well. Right. So if they can, they have their social media platforms as well. So if they can share that on their platforms, just trying to leverage their voice and kind of spreading that as well.
Perfect. Yeah, that's a great one. Okay, so I've captured a list of that, and I think we could run through it on Monday. I'm wondering if, and I guess I'm asking Madam Clerk about this. Can we? I'm assuming we are on the agenda, formally on the agenda for the meeting on Monday to share this.
Chair Lord, yes, this item is on the agenda, and we will attach this statement to that agenda as well as to the marked agenda from this meeting. So it will have, again, greater public transparency and access.
Okay, that sounds great. Commissioner Stignani, since you were the author of it, I mean, maybe I could talk about the purpose of it, but would you like to share it with the commission and review it with the commission?
I'd be happy to talk it through, but I mean, this is the version we're sharing. So I'm happy to be the person who introduces it and walks through this. I mean, it's definitely a group effort at this point.
Yeah. Well, you were the one who raised your hand and did the work, so that matters.
I appreciate it.
Doing the work matters, right?
The world is run by those who show up. So I'm very happy to do my part and share it with the committee, commission.
Cool.
So count on it. So.
I guess there's just one last thing I wanted to briefly talk about. We don't need to solve for this in the meeting today, but I have heart for an additional communication that would go to the city council and mayor, and really be much more aggressive in advocating them to prioritize civil rights during this time. And to the idea Commissioner Devenish had last week, using it as an opportunity to remind them of some of the policing recommendations that we made in the report that we sent to the mayor and some of the city council members. Is there heart for this task force to take that on as a second task, and maybe continue meeting and have continue this task force and have some follow-up conversations to craft a communication along those lines?
So
Go ahead.
I'm sorry, Commissioner Lord, this is Commissioner Devenish. What I hear you saying is you would like the existing team members to help contact our council members. Is that what I hear you saying?
No, I'm suggesting that we create a second statement, a second written communication, that would be targeted to the mayor and the city council, and
Mhm.
asking them to really prioritize civil rights in our city,
Okay.
and ask and really make, a much more aggressive ask, if you will,
Mhm.
of them.
Okay.
Yeah.
I kind of think one message should be fine, because whatever we say to the community, we should be able to say to our council members and our representatives. So I kind of feel like one is sufficient, but I'm open to other ideas.
This is Commissioner Staniani. I mean, to the degree that we want to use gloves off language to the commission, the council, and the city, we could certainly append below that statement things that would be privately communicated. But I think that, you know, the public statement, I think, stands on its own legs as well.
I guess I just wonder why we would have two separate messages. I that's the only thing that's what I'm thinking. But
I agree.
once again, I'm open to other ideas. I just feel like if we're saying one thing to the community and another to our basically superiors, I kind of see that as not being transparent. And that's just my personal thought.
I would, Commissioner Staniani, I would suggest we put it to the full council on Monday, up or down on it, and then.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. That makes sense to me. And see if, and they may have some additional ideas on content or things that they would want to talk about.
Sounds good.
Cool. Other comments or thoughts from the task force members before we adjourn? Okay, our member of the public, Ashanti, any last comments or thoughts from you? I really want to thank you for joining us today. Your perspective was really great.
Thank you. No, I don't.
Okay, I guess I'm going to move for adjournment.
Second.
Okay,
Chair Lord?
this is record time for us. Yes, did I forget to do something? Did I forget
No,
to do
Chair
something? I
Lord.
did, didn't I?
If there's no objection, then you can declare that the meeting be adjourned.
Oh, brilliant. Meeting's over.
All right, thank you, everyone.
Everyone.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Goodbye.
Thank you all.